Hi there, Sandra here from the Schwowin's Nest. Thanks so much for joining me today. Little change in schedule. Instead of my Wood Wednesday, I'm doing Timber Thursday today. I'm going to start out with this wood board from the Dollar Tree. It's interesting how some of these Easter signs, the paper comes off super easy like this one, and on other ones, I've had to really struggle. But anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one in half just using my utility knife, scoring the board a few times and then giving it a snap, cleaning up the edges with a little sandpaper. I'm going to use the smooth back as the front of my sign, but I want to be able to hold the two pieces together. These are some dollar store wooden stakes that I get at Dollarama in a pack of $1.25 for 10, and these are fantastic. They cut so easy with my miter shears, and I really love them. They're probably similar to jumbo popsicle sticks, but maybe just a little bit longer. Here I'm just using some hot glue to glue the sticks on, and I'll have a nice sturdy board. I'm going to use some of this white spackling or drywall putty, whatever you want to call it, to fill in the holes. And I'm using the white instead of the brown wood filler I have because I will be painting this sign white, and that just makes more sense. I won't have to worry about covering up some brown wood filler. I want the sign to have a look of shiplap, or that there's more than just the two boards put together. So I'm using my ruler, my utility knife, and I'm going to score a couple of lines in the middle of each of the Dollar Tree boards and make it look like there's some planks. I'm going to give this a couple of coats of white latex paint. This is just regular house paint that I've added a little bit of talc baby powder to, just to give it a little faster drying time and a little bit of a thicker coverage. If you're interested in that recipe, it's down in my description box. Now that the sign is dry, I want to make those score lines just a little bit more visible, like the center one. So I'm just going to go over with my utility knife just once, and you can see that that automatically just brings out that plank line. I am loving being able to print on white tissue paper. This is just gift wrap tissue paper that I pick up at the Dollar Tree, and I go ahead and tape it right onto a regular piece of printer paper and then run it through my printer as usual. I have an inkjet printer. I have found that some of my viewers have also tried it on a laserjet printer. So if you've got either of those options at home, you should be able to do this. As usual, I will have this design available as a free printable on my website. This is such an easy technique, but it has such beautiful results. A layer of Mod Podge, put your tissue paper down, then using the same small brush with Mod Podge on it, make sure that you're always dipping it in to make sure that it's not dry. If you have a dry brush, it will rip the tissue paper. Work from the inside out and then pounce up and down on the edges all the way around to get rid of any air bubbles and to make sure that those edges are really nice and blended in with the sign. I have seen a bunch of people using those beautiful greenery rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree. Unfortunately, none of my Dollar Trees have them at all, ever. So I decided to just use this free printable that I got from Pixabay and do the same thing. I printed it out on my tissue paper and I'm going to add it to the top. This is the Kirklands inspiration that I'm doing. This one was $50 and mine ended up being $1. All I had to buy was the board from the Dollar Tree. Everything else I had on hand. So for $1, amazing, beautiful, gorgeous sign. I just love it. The second wood project I have for you today is another sign, but it's using this bamboo cutting board that I pick up at my local Dollarama store. I love these because number one, they're nice and solid. Number two, look at all that beautiful wood striping. And I thought this would look super cute as a barn. So I'm just going to show you here what I go through to try and figure out the barn shape. This stumps me every time. I don't know why I just don't make myself a template and then I can just trace it on. But each time I'm doing this, I just get so confused. And anyway, I wanted to show you all of the markings and the scribblings that I go through to figure out how I want this to look. I took the board out to my table saw and got the cuts. I think they're okay. A little bit wonky up at the top there, but I'm going to make it work. So now I'm taking a big brush and some gray chalk paint that I've watered down because I want this to be a stain. So I'm just working in small sections and I'm putting it on and then just rubbing it off. And I'm getting a really sweet look of barn board. So that's why I wanted to use this wooden cutting board because it has these awesome stripes. I wanted to give the barn a roof line. So I'm taking some of this leftover Dollar Tree sign. Again, this is just one of those Easter signs that they do in their press board material. And I'm just going to cut out 4 strips that I'm going to measure and then make the peak of the barn. I've got my pieces measured out and I'm just going to apply them with some hot glue. These pieces are wider than the board itself, which is okay. So I'm going to center the piece right on top of the board. I want a little bit sticking out on both sides because I'm going to make this a double-sided sign. To fill in the gaps on the roof where the 2 boards meet, I'm just using some brown wood filler that I happen to have on hand, and then I'm going to let that dry and sand down any rough edges. So this part of the sign is really fun. I'm using some of these stencils that I picked up at Michael's on clearance. They're from the Martha Stewart line. So I'm going to do the cow down at the bottom, a pig, and then instead of a chicken, I've decided to do the lamb because then on one of my other sheets, I have a chicken weather vane. And I just thought that would be the cutest thing to have all of these lined up like that. It's very popular. I see it on Etsy and on YouTube and in stores all the time. So I thought I would make my own version. I'm just using some white acrylic paint for this and a regular kitchen sponge just to get a little bit of texture on these little stencils. Now, because my cutting with the table saw wasn't 100% perfect, I do have some gaps in between the board and the roof. So I'm taking these tiny little square dowels that I picked up at Dollarama, and I believe they came in 3 different sizes. This one is a 1/4 inch size. You could use any type of small stick that you have. You could probably even use some round dowels if you wanted, but I just wanted to clean this up and make it look a little bit more professional. So I just cut them using my miter shears with some angles and I'm applying it with some hot glue. Now I'm just using some fine grit sandpaper just to get that wood filler sanded down so I don't have any lumps and bumps. And then I'm going to paint this with a dark gray chalk paint. It's Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Maui Sand. I love how this sign is looking so far, but I thought it needed something else. So I decided to add some barn doors. And these are just going to be partial barn doors. I'm not going to go all the way through the animals because that would just be wrong. But I'm going to go ahead and tape off using some painter's tape and then just sponge again using the same white paint. And then I'll also put the X through the middle. For the final touch, I decided to go ahead and use a really stiff brush and just do a little dry brushing of white on the roof to give it some distressing. For the back of this sign, I gave it 1 coat of Martha Stewart chalk paint in clay. And now I'm taking the same rough brush and dragging some white distress marks. So this rough brush is actually just a regular paintbrush that I've used for dry brushing and then haven't washed it afterwards. So it's getting really stiff because of the excess paint on it, but it lets me get some really nice lines. I'm using stencils again on this side, and these were, I think they're just a Farmhouse font. I can't remember. I threw away the package that they came in, but they're really nice, tall, skinny letters, and I'm just going to do the word home at the bottom. Then using my Cricut, I designed a half windmill and I cut it out using this plastic poster board that I can get at Michael's. I'm going to go ahead and stencil using the same white chalk paint and the same sponge brush. And then when I'm done this side, I'll just wipe off the stencil and repeat it on the other side. And then I'll get a full half of a windmill. I thought these little swirls would look nice on either side of the home word because that just seemed a little blank on its own. I really love how this sign turned out. Both sides are absolutely beautiful. For this next wood project, I'm going to take this piece of MDF board and I'm going to measure out 4.5 inches square. And I'm going to do that 4 times and then just take my utility knife and score them and snap them. Now, if you don't have something like this, easily you could use one of the Dollar Tree signs. This is just a little bit thicker. You could also use the square wood planks that you can also find at Dollar Tree. I believe they're 6 in a pack. I'm going to use some painter's sticks and measure out how long I need them. And of course, they're going to be probably close to 4.5 inches. So for one painter's stick, I'm going to get 2 pieces out of it, and I'll need 4 pieces to cover the bottom. At first, I thought I would use my miter box and my hacksaw. That didn't work out very well for me, so I decided to just use my utility knife, and I just scored it about 6 or 7 times until I got about 3/4 of the way through, and then I was able to snap it off. Then I just used a bit of sandpaper to clean off any rough edges. I'm going to use 4 different colors of stain. 2 are actually going to be a gel stain. This first one is a black one, and then I have a dark walnut. So I'll do 2 in the black and 2 in dark walnut. And then I'm going to use some clay colored chalk paint and I'm going to water it down to create a stain, and that will be sort of a medium gray tone. Then I'm also going to add a little bit of white to that chalk paint and then add more water, and then that will be a lighter stain color. Then using the same clay color, I just painted the back and the edges of each of the bottom pieces. Once they were dry, I used some Aleene's tacky glue, put a generous amount right on top of the square, and then glued my pieces down. Once I was done, I set them aside with something heavy on top until the glue dried. Then they got a good layer of matte Mod Podge to seal them. I think they turned out sweet. This last wood project for you today is just using an old frame. It is solid wood. I'm just going to remove everything really carefully. I'm going to discard all of the staples and the paper backing, but I am going to keep the glass. I'm going to give this one good coat of black chalk paint just to cover up the pink and create a base for my next color. I'm using these square dowels again. This is the small one. I think it's 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just measuring here to make sure I have it in the center. And then I'll also be able to measure how long I need to cut the 2 smaller pieces for the sides. I'm using Starbond glue and the accelerator to get these pieces together. I didn't want any hot glue to be showing in the center, and with Starbond glue, it has the consistency of a thick crazy glue, so I thought that would work out really well because you won't see it. I've got the frame flipped upside down, and I'm also using the Starbond glue and the accelerator to make sure that everything is glued down really well. So with Starbond glue, you put the glue down on one surface, you put the accelerator on the other surface, and then the two stick together instantly. It creates a super fast hold, and I just love using this glue. If you're interested in trying some out, I do have a 10% off coupon down in my description box with the link to Starbond. Now that that's all finished, I'm going to give the frame inside, out, front, back, a couple of coats of white chalk paint. Then I'll be ready to distress. I'm just using some fine grit sandpaper, and I'm going over all of the raised edges and some of the corners just to bring out some of that black from underneath. To put the glass in, I put some hot glue on all four of the pane areas, including the center, just enough so you wouldn't see it. And now I'm just taking my hot glue gun and drawing a full bead all along the edge of the glass so it is nice and secure inside the frame. And that's it. I've got a beautiful little decorative window that I can use on vignettes or hang on a wall, and I think it's a really neat addition to your decor. I hope you enjoyed this Wood Wednesday, aka Timber Thursday. If you like this kind of content, I'd love for you to stick around. Hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thank you to all of my viewers and subscribers. I really appreciate your support. It's helping me grow my channel, and I couldn't be happier. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next one.